TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donation.
Shalom ve'erev tov, good evening. Welcome to our daily TV7 Israel News Bulletin broadcast from Jerusalem. The IRGC and Israel exchange blows as the Ayatollah regime in Iran seeks to maintain its unrelenting grip over Lebanon. A deadly terror attack in central Israel claims the life of one Israeli and wounds 4 others. The European Union imposes fresh sanctions against the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps Navy over its unabashed blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Tensions simmered into full-fledged hostilities over the weekend when the Iranian proxy Hezbollah defied the parameters of an American-brokered cessation of hostilities arrangement, launching one-way attack drones and rockets at Israeli communities in northern Israel, followed by an Israeli retaliatory strike against a Hezbollah command center in Beirut's Dahya neighborhood, which then triggered the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps to launch dozens of ballistic missiles at Israel, drawing a devastating Israeli response, destroying dozens of military and dual-use targets throughout Iran. Prior to that, during a weekly cabinet meeting in Jerusalem held yesterday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed a deadly terror attack in the central Israeli town of Kochav Yair, in which one Israeli was murdered and 4 other civilians sustained separate degrees of injuries.
We are fighting terrorism on all fronts. In Judea and Samaria and along the same line, the IDF, ISA, and the Israel police foil hundreds of attacks every year, though unfortunately not all of them. This morning, an abhorrent terrorist set out, reached Kochav Yair, and unfortunately managed to murder an Israeli citizen and wound others before being neutralized. First and foremost, I praise the rapid response teams that acted immediately against the terrorists. I praise the officers of the Israel police who neutralized the terrorist and also apprehended his accomplice.
The police spokesperson's unit revealed following an investigation at the scene of the terror attack that a 20-year-old Arab-Israeli terror operative who was in possession of a makeshift gun arrived at the gas station near Kochav Yair and opened fire towards bystanders.
I was on my way to work and stopped along the way just to get myself a drink from Aroma Cafe. I arrived here, parked my car, and started walking toward Aroma Cafe. As I began walking, right in the middle of the way, there were already sounds of gunfire. We didn't really understand where it was coming from. There was a kind man who told me, "Come inside." I preferred to continue to Aroma because I knew there was a bomb shelter there. Looking back, it turns out that while I was hesitating for a moment and talking to the man who was telling me to come inside and offering to help me, the first wounded person was actually right next to me. Later we realized that he had been shot inside the McDonald's, right at the entrance.
It exacted a very heavy price. But, with great determination, rapid encircling, and a prompt recognition that it is a terror incident, Sharon Police Precinct forces, together with Taipei Precinct, and all of the other precincts in the area, we engaged the target and opened fire, eliminating the terrorist. We will continue our situational assessments. We don't stop scanning the areas. We will persist, despite the fact that, I say again, the public can relax. It is very important that it relaxes. We control the situation.
Returning to Jerusalem, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned the Iranian proxy Hezbollah that its continued attacks against Israeli communities and troops would draw a harsh Israeli response, pointing out that over the past week alone, over 350 Hezbollah terror operatives were successfully eliminated.
In Lebanon, our forces have eliminated 350 terrorists in the past week alone. They captured the Beaufort Ridge, where they discovered a massive underground infrastructure. We are completing the elimination of the terrorist villages adjacent to our border. We are striking them very hard, and we know that Hezbollah is on the run. We will not allow firing at our territory or our communities, and we will act accordingly.
At the backdrop of a U.S.-brokered agreement between the Lebanese and Israeli governments, Hezbollah defiantly intensified its attacks against Israeli targets in a clear attempt to derail any progress made on the Beirut-Jerusalem diplomatic track. In tandem, the Ayatollah regime officials published repeated threats warning Israel that any attack against Hezbollah in Beirut and their stronghold of Dahya would draw an Iranian attack against Israel. Tehran's goal, in addition to salvaging its proxy to Hezbollah, is to ensure Iran maintains its influence in Lebanon by connecting it to the negotiations with the United States to end the conflict between Washington, Jerusalem, and Tehran.
In the recent war between Iran and the United States, Lebanon is an inseparable part. Of course, this war is between Iran and the United States and Israel, the Zionist regime, and naturally Lebanon is an inseparable part of this war, just as it was involved during the war. Therefore, we do not see the fate of Iran's war with the United States and Israel as separate from the fate of the war in Lebanon. They are connected.
Jerusalem clearly signaled to Tehran that it would not abide by its delusional demands, striking deep in Hezbollah's Dahya stronghold over repeated attacks against Israeli territory, drawing an IRGC pledge to punish Israel.
Despite the previous warnings of the Islamic Republic of Iran, the child-killing Zionist regime has targeted Beirut's Dahya by crossing all red lines and increasing attacks in southern Lebanon. We had previously warned that if the crime in the suburbs of Beirut expands, we will attack targets in the occupied territories. The Zionist army must stop its attacks on southern Lebanon and the suburbs, and if it expands its attacks on that region or responds to Iran's actions, it will face more crushing and regrettable blows, and destructive attacks will begin against the regime and its supporters.
The Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, or IRGC, subsequently followed through with an initial barrage of less than a dozen ballistic missiles launched at Israel's northern communities last night. According to Israeli sources, all of the incoming projectiles were successfully intercepted.
A short time ago, the Iranian terrorist regime launched missiles towards the territory of the State of Israel. We were prepared for this. The IDF is strongly prepared for defense and attack. Air defense systems are deployed throughout the country. At this time, the Chief of Staff is conducting a situation assessment with the General Staff Forum and approving plans for the future. The Iranian terrorist regime made a serious mistake when it once again chose terrorism. The regime is trying to create a new equation. When it conducts direct fire on our territory in response to the IDF's attacks on Dahya, we will not allow this. We attacked Dahya following Hezbollah's incessant fire on the northern settlements. The IDF will continue to operate throughout Lebanon and deepen the damage to Hezbollah. We will not allow continued fire on the citizens of the State of Israel.
Israel's pledge to respond did not delay, with the Israeli Air Force launching wave after wave of aerial strikes against dozens of military and dual-use targets throughout central and western Iran. The IRGC and its Yemeni proxy Ansar Allah, which is dominated by the Houthi tribe in Yemen, attempted to respond to Israel's retaliatory strikes against Iran by launching additional ballistic missiles towards Israeli territory during the morning hours. Nevertheless, for every ballistic missile launched at Israel, the Israeli Air Force conducted many strikes, clearly reminding the terror regime in Tehran the unmatched qualitative military edge of the IDF. By midday, Iran managed to fire 24 ballistic missiles towards Israeli territory, and their Houthi counterparts had launched merely 2 projectiles. All of the incoming projectiles failed to penetrate Israel's aerial defense array, resulting in no injuries and nominal damage by debris. In contrast, Israel destroyed dozens of major Iranian infrastructure to include strategic installations. And at approximately 12:30 p.m. Israel time, President Donald Trump released a statement on his Truth Social, insisting that both Israel and Iran must immediately stop shooting. And while Israel was ready to launch additional waves of aerial strikes against the Ayatollah regime in Iran, the IRGC announced that it would cease its fire on Israel, all the while blaming the United States of being complicit to Israel's devastating response.
America has direct responsibility in any action that the Zionist regime carries out in relation to violation of regional peace and security against Iran.
Following the Iranian announcement claiming they intend to cease their missile fire against Israel, U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a phone conversation, during the course of which the two leaders discussed the latest developments, and per an Israeli source, the conversation was regarded as positive. And while since President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke, Israel has not conducted additional strikes against the Ayatollah regime in Iran. In contrast, however, the IDF does continue to conduct operations against the Iranian proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon. Turning to Cyprus, where EU Foreign Policy and Security Chief Kaja Kallas, during an EU Defense Ministerial, emphasized the institution's hope to realize a negotiated solution between Iran and the United States.
There has to be a diplomatic solution, and they have to sit around the table because eventually they have to agree on this. Of course, we can help with, after the ceasefire, also the escorting of the ships, and we will discuss this today. But the first point is really the ceasefire. Of course, we are in touch with both parties to really give them this message that ceasefire is very much weighted. I mean, stopping this war right now, opening the Strait of Hormuz, and then using the time for longer discussions when it comes to the more difficult topics like nuclear, but other critical issues that are there. But there's only so much we can do, so we are trying to, put these messages forward, yes.
The EU's top diplomat further revealed that the European 27-member bloc had come to an agreement on imposing sanctions against the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps' Navy to include individuals and entities involved in disrupting the transit through the Strait of Hormuz. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News, which is made possible by the generosity of our viewers. Please keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem and redemption of Israel. Jonathan Essen wishing you a Shavua Mevorach, and God willing, until our next update, Shalom from Jerusalem.